We was just gonna leave it at that, like, oh, the police shot somebody because they tried to run somebody over, and oh well, the officer got an injury, like.
But no, just imagine he didn't even get it at all.
Right, and you shot somebody in the chest 3 times.
3 times and twice, once in the shoulder and once in the wrist.
So really doctor for that is what it sounded like.
So yeah, she got shot 5 times.
Oh, in the arm and the hands.
And I think that they were cool with it because it was Canandaigua, like for sure nobody gonna say shit about Canandaigua or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to like the complacency of these police departments and stuff like that. Like they really deal with violence and all that other type of bullshit. That's really like how they move. And with all this shit that's been going on for the last month, for them to clean shoot somebody and be like,
it's okay.
But it's who they are.
It's,
you know, you can't be anything other than who you are. You know, so it's like it's just trying to make water not be wet. To make cops not be violent is to make water not be wet. So it is what it is. And that's why reform is like, you know.
So how do we change the fear? Because I feel like it originates from fear. Like they're automatically fearful of any black or brown person. So the police? Yeah, like, and I feel like they're trained to be fearful of black and brown people. Like they're trained to be afraid of black and brown people. So how do we, like, honestly, it's not a narrative, like it's the truth. So how do we change it? How do we adjust that?
Well, I don't think they're trained to be fearful. I feel that they're trained to try to control us by any means necessary. Because if you look at the origins of policing, the origins of policing were around controlling black bodies. So if you were from the very formation, if you were formed to control a body by any means necessary, and they were formed during a time when we were considered cattle, we were considered property. It's like killing a dog. And if these things have been passed down into the genetic memory of the police force, they can say that they're afraid, but they're not afraid. What they want is to exercise what they believe is their right, what has been put into their memory, because also you have to remember, policing is a generational occupation. So people are generations of cops. So I'm a cop, my dad was a cop, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. So if this spirit is passed down epigenetically, just like, you know, the ability to cook, to sing, this thing gets passed down generation to generation into the DNA of folk. You know, it's like, it's not fear, it's control. And I think until we stop trying to, you know, because as long as your interpretation guides your intervention, right? So how you see a thing depends on how you treat a thing. And so if we keep thinking that it's because they're afraid, we're going to keep trying to make ourselves be non-threatening. But there's no level of non-threatening that we can make ourselves if their thing is because they're not afraid of us. They want to kill us.
Where's the offering plate? Pass the offering plate.
Yeah, it's a power trip, right? And so I think when we try to like be more docile and play ourselves down, we just play into their power trip they already got, like, and we've seen that all summer, all fall, when they keep showing up without their mask on and all that shit. Like they know they going home to a paycheck. They know that they banking on all of this overtime, right? And they have 4 generations. Like their grandparents got paid in the riots type shit, you know. And they exactly, even if they kill in the line of duty, like you gonna get like that's setting that's generational wealth still, in a way we will never see when we get killed by them. And it's like even if we do get a settlement, like that settlement don't do the same thing for us that a settlement do for them, because their whole family is cops or whatever, you know? Right. And they had generations to figure shit out where we in mad trauma. So imagine like the family of Rihanna, or in games, you know? Because like they gave her a settlement and then tried to take the shit back. Like that baby gotta live again. That baby seen y'all murder his mom. Like it's no amount of money that can fix that. And it's just a power trip. Like they knew what was up when they went in here. They just go killing black people, killing black women specifically.
The goal was for her to die. Her story was not supposed to be told. No. And that's really what it was. And that's really, like you said, like the mindset of all of them. You know, if any of us about it, it's not, I don't know, it's really not no one good cop. You know, fall like that. Like, you're hard to glue, all you're supposed to do.
But if you think about it, like when I think about them killing black women, I mean, the older I get, the more I think about this, and the fact that they're trying to kill black. Because to bring us a black life. They kill the women, they kill the bringers of the life. You know, they kill the nurturers, they kill that. And it's like, it's almost like almost a spiritual. That they're trying to kill life within it.
And then most of them are already in custody.
Not a plug or nothing. But in the book, a black queer feminist mandate for the movement by Carly Brothers, she talked about that. Like, we all need to be black feminists specifically.
Yes.
Like, we need to be feminists because we live in a system of patriarchy, but we need to be black feminists because, like, black women, black trans folks, black LGBTQ folks are, like, the most marginalized, right? And so it's like, it's not just enough to show up for women because they'll treat black women 10 times worse. And we know that from, like, when we read Asada, right? And we see how they kept her in a men's prison or whatever. And we see just the conditions of the jail downtown and how they treat people. Or we was just on that call about that boy or whatever. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about. But they be treating people any type of way, especially once you're in here. Like, your life don't matter. They really, like, intentionally, like, have, like, worked on the dehumanization process and, like, perfected it over time. It's like, no, it's not chattel slavery no more, but it's really just saying, like, fuck that. Peace. Hey.
We're just having a conversation around everything liberation and social security.
I keep thinking of all the work this group and many other people have done this summer to really confront all these different systems of oppression. We're confronting institutional racism within the hospital and medical system. We're confronting the police. We're confronting the political system that, although in the city is ran by Black people, is still grounded in deep white supremacy. So just thinking of how we do a lot of this. We have artists who captured a lot of the work we've done in the streets. We have artists like Rachel, like so many different people, you know, contributing in so many different ways. But I keep thinking, how do we go from this powerful street movement to long-term lasting changes in policy, changes in how we do things, like truly dismantling the system? I do feel that we have had wins all summer. However, how do we make it easier for the next generation, for Ashley's daughter to not have to sleep outside of City Hall to demand change, to not have to be pepper sprayed and tear gassed and beaten with batons to demand equity in the system? So I keep thinking of what's next. Like it's so hard sometimes to just struggle in the moment when, you know, right when you take a break or you say, I'm having a self-care day, which is important. You hear about Chanel Hines. You know, a self-care day, you get a call from someone in the jail who's been beaten and is being put in solitary.
I think for me, right, I always say this is like I'm always on a soapbox. But when I say it, I'm always thinking about like long-term goals or like what longevity in the sport looks like versus like, you know, protesting every day for the entire summer and then being burnt out and the police still kicking our asses, right? So like, how do we get longevity? And I've really been thinking about the Daniel Cruz case, right? And what the grand jury might bring back or might not bring back, right? And I'm thinking about the fact that like, it's a very high possibility that these officers won't be indicted. And then even if they are indicted, they won't be convicted, right? And if they do, great, that's what we want. But like, the problem is that there's policies put in place that protect them when they kill us.
Yes.
So like, we can't just protest, right? We have to change policy. We have to take seats. And for me, like, that's been one of the biggest things, just seeing like the election that happened here. And like, just when I'm thinking about statewide advocacy and what that looks like, we've been doing it for the last, 10 years. And to know that like, wow, we've been protesting in Rochester, you know, and we've been talking to our legislators and they haven't done anything. But 4 people just won their seats here, right? 4 Democrats. And like, how do we hold on to that? How do we take that? How do we like then hold them accountable? Like, don't just let them win, but like, how do we keep their feet to the fire? Like, y'all were out here protesting with us all summer, and like, that can't just be to get elected. So like, now what are you gonna do? So like, how do we like expand the power that we have past just protesting? And for me, that has to look like policy. It has to look like politics. We have to take seats. We talk about defunding the police all the time, right? And I know here in Rochester, some of the key people to doing that is city council and the mayor, right? So like, how do we go from having those conversations to like brick walls? Because that's what it's been, having a conversation about defunding the police with the mayor and with city council. So how do we take the power that we have and turn it into some real action? And for me, the next step is like, you have to take these seats. Like, we can't just be asking these folks to understand where we're coming from. We have to do the work to elect people who believe what we believe and who have the best interest of the community as a whole. And defunding the police just doesn't, that don't make us just feel better. I mean, it didn't make me feel better, but it's like we're not asking for it just so we can feel better. We're asking for it because we know what the reallocation of those resources will do for our own communities, right? So like, we have to take those seats, and it's a lot of work, right? For me, it's more than just protesting in the street. It's like the get down and dirty work that nobody likes to do, because it's phone calls, and it's knocking on doors, and it's organizing one-on-one.
Right. And I think in addition to taking political action, like the seat should belong to the people, but the movement should also be strong enough to persuade whoever is in that seat to do what the movement is asking. So as we are filling these seats, we know that white supremacy can snatch, people, and though they might go with good intentions, it's so difficult to continue to be radical in those spaces. So once someone becomes an elected official, we know they essentially are working for the state. So in addition to taking those seats and holding them accountable, we have to continue to build a strong enough mass movement to where they know if we ask for something that our lives depend on, like defunding the police or having mental health calls be responded to by mental health professionals, we are willing to make the change or have our demands met by any means necessary.
Period.
For me, it's so ridiculous. Like, from the healing space, from where I sit, the fact that I still have to have the conversations about what healing needs to look like, right? And I mean, literally, like today, I was having a conversation about what healing needs to look like for our people. And they're like, well, Melanie, are you sure? And I'm like, well, I've been black for 50 years. And I've studied and I've read. But the thing is, you didn't ask Heather. You created person-centered so that Heather could get her voice heard. And it's just like, my thing is like, I've been doing all these things about how do we do this so people can access what they need to be what I keep looking at, and I said this to y'all, having the perspective that I have, I just don't want y'all to be out on the street to get so tired that you die. Yeah. And I don't mean like you have a heart attack and die. I mean, then the young man, when I go to bed at night, I still have the vision of a young man after George Floyd, was a young man who killed himself on the steps of a town hall of the city. I don't remember the name. Cleveland. And I see that image in my head when I go to bed. Because just like it could have been him, it could have been any one of you. Right? Because the pressure is the same. And so why do I have to fight? Because you don't want to go to a white church, or you want something that looks like you, somewhere you can go and feel affirmed and feel loved, no matter who you are. But everybody else can get it unless you're black. Because I don't have to I don't have to, for my white queer brothers and sisters, I don't have to make that argument. They say, oh no, we understand that. But why is it so different? Well, and then they just leave me silent because they don't give me money. And I just want, my thing is, I don't know if it's because of the maternal part of me, I don't know what, I just want to make sure that, like I said, when you make the movement's strong because the bodies and the movement are healthy. Right? And it means feeding y'all spirit, feeding your soul as well as feeding your body. Y'all can be vegan all day, but if you... Not me. Well, I'm just saying, no shade to vegans, but you can be vegan, raw food, whatever it is, but if your heart is broken constantly, you can't heal from trauma, you're gonna die. And how do we make sure that we keep that focus?
And to piggyback off of your heart isn't full, or even just when we were at City Hall and we were out there, and people from the community joined us and were like, oh wow, like there's food here, there's people here, like I'm by myself on these streets usually, or this is my first warm meal in a long time. And that like really broke my heart because people will willingly go to jail and commit small crimes because that's the only place they can get food and that's the only place they can sleep. And that shouldn't be the only option for people. And I've seen so many people, especially when the protests started happening in May, who were just like, yeah, I met so many people I would normally talk to on the streets. And it's like, yeah, we should start extending grace and kindness to people on the street. If somebody asks you for a dollar, don't assume, oh, this person's trying to rob me. That's white supremacy ingrained in us. That person is a human being, no matter what choices led them to that. And at the end of the day, if you look at all the things that happened to them, or why they committed crimes, or however which way, it all comes down to black people not being seen as good enough for services like mental health. Like when white people commit crimes, or especially white kids, because it's black kids that are going straight from middle school, high school to prison forever, and not being given a chance, even if it's their first offense, is because they want white kids to have the benefit of the doubt that a black person is immediately a criminal. So, like housing, even when we were at the citywide credit union thing, and the marshal was there, the marshal said from his mouth, like, where is this tenant who can't pay his rent? I want to tell him to his face he's evicted. I said, you care more about a building than this person who like is living in these conditions that this landlord refuses to fix. He's paying to live in this awful shack. And you just want to tell another human that you want them out on the streets? Like, how can you live with yourself? And then we become dehumanized and don't see other people, especially black people, as worthy of kindness, but like a white person, oh, they're just lost, or oh, they made a mistake. And it's like, what about everybody? It makes me really mad.
But the thing is, it's about the thing about humanity, right? When you don't see me as human, like I was on a call earlier this week. Someone asked me about, they said, well, honey, I want you to do this thing, right? And they started talking about the thing, and I was listening, and I said, wait a minute. I said, bitch. Oh. You want me to do a restorative circle with a motherfucking cop?
I'm still trying for it.
Right? And so, I mean, and the thing is, that's basically what it was. And I said, and because I love this person, they love me, I was able to say that. I said, do you not understand? And I began to relay some stories to this person. And they said to me that they had talked to somebody else, and the other person relayed some similar stories, and they meant well. I think they meant well. They said, well, Melanie, healing can't come, what would they say?
Something like
No. They had it backwards. They said, justice can't come without healing. I said, no, baby, healing cannot come without justice. You got it backwards. I said, you cannot heal, healing can't come without justice. And we said, but I said, no, healing understands. If you are wanting me to stand before you with a person who does not see my humanity, it's like mediation in cases of bullying. You do not put someone who's bullied in front of the person who's bullying them to mediate them to say no bullying them anymore. You don't do that. And they were like, no, you don't do that. They said, no, that doesn't work. So why are you asking me? If we're being bullied by the police that we pay for.
You know all the works of the bully. You gotta be fun.
Yeah, you gotta find a bigger one. But my thing is, you find this, I said, you know this doesn't work in this case, so why are you trying to apply the same thing to this other situation? And he said, well, they said to me, what do you propose that we do? I said, not that. I said, you've got to get these folks to understand and do something else, and you got to get some justice before you get anybody else to the table. But I said, and then they were saying, well, honey, we got to start. So then I said, well, I'm going to ask you this last question. I said, how many pounds of my flesh do you need to get the aha moment from this person? Let me know now, so I know how many pounds of flesh I'm going to bring to this thing. So that's what it is. I'm tired of black people giving a pound of flesh for a white person to have an aha moment.
I'm saying, what are we supposed to do when you give your pound of flesh?
Right.
because it always requires our trauma, right? For them to like understand anything. Whether it's a family being put out, like you gotta drag these people into the street, and then you gotta see like, oh, it's a mother with 5 kids, and the crying babies on TV before somebody be like, oh wait, maybe we shouldn't be kicking people out in the streets. And then again, it goes to us specifically being black feminists, because it's like, they'll let the crying black mom and her kids be on the street. Like, it's really not until, like when you think of like, I'm sorry, it's not. When you think of like the Great Depression or whatever, it's that one picture of like that one white lady, right? And she's so like sad, and that's like the picture that like embodied the Great Depression. And it's like, if it was depressed for white people, imagine what it was like for black people across the country. But that's not images we ever really see. Like, we see this white lady that's so tired, and it's, it's a lot for them. But it's like, when is it time, and when are we not being like, when is it not too much? Like, so Andrew's saying, like, where do we go from here? When you say that immediately takes me to the MLK book, where do we go from here? Chaos. And it's like, in the first section of that book, that's what he's talking about. Like, I done sat in the White House and we signed a bill. Yeah. I done seen all these things they said they were going to do, and it still looked just the same. Like, Miss King, this is the person that everybody be like, this is the direction we need to move in. But it's also like, we don't necessarily want to read that person's King. We only want to talk about I Have a Dream King. And it's like, come on. And the thing is, but I Have a Dream King, they don't really want to talk about that, because they don't want to talk about this fucking uncashed check. I'm sorry. They don't want to talk about the uncashed check. They just want to talk about I Have a Dream, okay? And they don't want to go ahead, Dave. No. This is Dream Deferred, because we here right now, present time, doing the exact same thing. And so for me specifically, I think like when I first started working in the street, because my Facebook post at the time was like, oh, I'm on MLK shit, because it seemed cool at the time, like, because Trayvon had just happened or whatever. It's like, damn, how we 8 odd years later or whatever, it's like the trauma and all the stuff you got to go through. And it's like, yes, the growth now, you look at it like, oh, yeah, well, I'm an expert in some things, and they could have such conversations, but like, it's nothing. Why should you have to be? Right. It's nothing to come from the trauma that I've gone through in this time for this experience. Like,
it shouldn't be that you should have to become an expert in how to dilute pepper spray. You should not have to become an expert in how to, on how to make your body limp and possible to make it hard enough to drag you out all night. You should not become an expert. There's certain things that we should not become expert in. If you become expert in how to grow tomatoes in not good soil, that's how you become an expert in, and it's dope. But it's like, we become experts in things that we should not become, because the system is like so jacked, and it normalizes.
And it's things that white kids don't even have to imagine getting comfortable in, or doing. Or when we look at like, what's his name, tax plan or whatever, like, bro, are you paying less than me? It's that's not like white mediocrity for me, and that's really like what so much stuff just be set up on. Like, that's enough. That's more than enough. You'll be fine. It's like, now we gotta go over 10 miles, top the expressway. Nobody had no voice. Nobody see their kids. They only see 5 wins. Like, we asked them to cancel the rent at the beginning of the summer. And now we literally putting our bodies in front of the marshals so that people not getting put on the street. Like, y'all could have just, like, the mayor could have put a moratorium in place months ago.
Absolutely.
Like, easy peasy. Other cities did it. It's no problem.
You said, okay, so nobody's working. You can. Other cities, like I said, other cities did it.
But the ones who got it here, you really got to try to make radical change and not necessarily aligning yourself with the oppressors. And I would say that, now I had told myself I wasn't going to talk about Pokemon, but then they didn't. No good choices in the time since I said I was going to talk about them. But it's like they actively be aligning themselves with the ops. Like, you align yourself with Bloomberg, you align yourself with the police until they drag you. Like, you do up. Yeah, I know. You could just make other choices, especially in a city that's mostly black, especially in a space that's like touted as this radical space, because the home of the lady that was going to chop her arm off, and the home of Frederick Douglass and all this stuff. Like, we could just be moving in what we're saying we're doing, and it's just like, that's just not what we do here. And so that's why we gotta keep being on the front street and showing up and making Well, actually said, because they just don't be trying to hear it when we just raising our voices.
I'll tell you what, I didn't think about it.
You gotta be bothered. Facebook needs to hear you say
Oh,
this.
Use your algorithm.
I'm not used to talking through the mask. I like to show my actual face, but, so I've been doing some thinking lately, and there was a movement back in the early part of the 20th century that was called the Bauhaus movement. Have y'all heard that before?
No.
So Bauhaus was an art school in Germany, and what they decided that they wanted to do was to pull together folks that were coming from all these different disciplines, folks that were painters and sculptors, folks that were architects, and the guy that ran it was a guy named Walter Gropius. And what he wanted to do was to pull all these disciplines together to determine what this new age of modernity was going to look like, right? And he wrote this manifesto that basically said that out of this moment, they were going to have to define this new world with all that was pregnant with possibility and opportunity. And a lot of the things that we take for granted today in design, like the way iPhones look or fonts that we use, were really the product of this very short 14-year period that these folks came together with all of this artistic energy and produced something that was new. The school ended up only lasting for 14 years because the Nazi Party, as it grew, saw them as an offense to the classical values that they had, and because they were evil. And so went and obliterated this school. And these folks ended up scattering all across the planet. I tell this story because Walter Gropius, this man that had these ideals, who pulled together this thing that totally redefined the 20th and now the 21st century, ended up leaving Germany, going to Harvard University, and he and many of the other folks in that school ended up getting co-opted by the systems that are currently in place. All of those ideals went to the wayside. And what they became were these new fonts, these new design principles, these new ideas, but they were redeployed in service of helping people to aggregate capital. It became, many of the skyscrapers were a guy named Vandermees was one of the heads of the school, who was he designed for a lot of skyscrapers around, and we know what skyscrapers represent in big cities, right? And so my point of all this is that we've got to think through how we deconstruct some of these systems in place. And not only do we have to deconstruct them, but we've got to provide alternatives. And I think that's the real challenge, right? Is that it isn't sufficient for us to only decry what doesn't work. We have to do that, and it's critical. And that's an important function. But we also need to supply, particularly our people, because we're lacking the imagination that this can be different. It doesn't have to be this way, right? But we've got to help people build that imagination, and we've got to do that in connection with folks. I think that's why it's been on my heart a lot lately, is how do we create more power for people, and how do we create more love to make that power real?
Wait, close the word.
I think I'm late on that.
Wow.
Everything Simeon said, I taught him everything else.
I taught Ashley everything she knows.
And I taught Stanley everything she knows.
And I taught them now.
Not everything, just 1 or 2 lessons for real, huh?
You guys, let's shift for a second, right? Because we can talk about this part of liberation, all day, right? But how do we, one thing, the best thing for me that came out of these protests, the wins that we got are great too, but really empowering our own community was just the best, right? For me, that's why I did this work, right? So being on Jefferson Avenue and seeing kids crying because we're starting our march and they're begging their parents, can they march with us, right? Or being on Jefferson Avenue and the kids that's in that neighborhood know that when we show up, we're bringing pizza and water and all that stuff, right? All of those things, for me, that's what community looks like, right? So as we pivot to another season, it's getting cold, we don't do that. So how do we still keep our own community empowered, uplifted, encouraged? Because what I don't want to happen is people seeing the power of what a collective community looks like. And when this indictment or non-indictment comes out, I still feel the weight and responsibility. How do we keep people engaged when we don't get what we want. And I'm not saying that we won't get what we want, I'm trying to speak positive things, right? But I know these folks really works. So how do we keep people who typically be disenfranchised, uninterested, boggled down by just the weight of the world, who have now gotten involved in this work, how do we keep them a part of it? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them, like, help them understand that, like, part of resistance is joy, right? Part of resistance is self-care. Part of resistance is laughter. So, like, as we go into another season and we pivot, I'm worried about, like, how do we keep this community engaged? How do we keep them uplifted? And how do we meet needs?
Two things come to mind instantly. Yesterday, I spent time with my first Serena's son, and an elder asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said, I want to be just like my mom, who is a Black Lives Matter organizer. And just thinking about how so many children and young people are really impacted by this movement, where they're seeing alternative roles in their community, alternative forms of leadership that aren't grounded in capitalist ideology. I also think how we keep people engaged is by doing what Simeon is talking about, by inviting everyone who wants to be a part of a different world to come to the table and start building something new. Start building an alternative to 911, where when someone is injured and they call for help, it is a community health worker, it is someone from their neighborhood. Instead of having to rely on AMR or Strong, there are so many Black doctors, there are so many indigenous doctors. How do we work together to build a completely different hospital system that is not grounded in white supremacy and grounded in, killing off Black mothers? We know about the mortality rate for Black mothers, and just like you said, it's killing off Black people that way. So I think how we keep people engaged over the summer is really getting to over the winter, is getting to the table and starting to think about what are the most urgent systems that we need to start rebuilding. Rebuilding our communities, ownership of our land, ownership of our communities, our neighborhoods, and even instituting our own forms of leadership. We know our current mayor has been co-opted by white supremacy, has been co-opted by capitalism, has been co-opted by so many different forces that unfortunately, I feel happen because there doesn't seem to be any alternative right now for her. So how do we start creating different leadership roles, different leadership models, and really, really drawing in the artists? We have the Rachels, the Martins, the Aminas, like all these different people at the table here and even in the audience, like coming together and rebuilding all of this, a different world, and that's what I'm thinking about. Actually whispering something over there before I do it.
I'm like, so I know artists. You ain't gonna say my name. You gonna say all this?
I think
I said exactly what I said.
I also think it's important to lean into the tools that we have, again, not plugging at all. Just saying there is a book club that's run every Tuesday, and specifically doing political education. So making sure we're engaging the community and reading, even if you're not reading, we're going out and having conversations with folks, and even if it's not direct action, showing up, how we showing up for the funeral, showing up with food and stuff like that, showing up to just be the police still ain't shit, and we still out here, and we still want justice. Showing up just to be are you alright? Checking in on families and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, even though all the money is here, they not put we all know how many people actually got their rent paid through the CARES Act and that funding and stuff. I done sent personally at least 10 people to the Catholic Center, and none of them got their rent. And all of them facing eviction right now, even though it should be an eviction moratorium. So it's us continuing to bring life to that. I think it's us working with, again, organizations that already exist. The tenant union is going.
Shout out to the tenant union.
Shout out. It's they need us to show up for them and show up with them and stand with them. I think it's us continuing to call out the people that's siphoning the money. So it's cafeteria centers, people not paying people rent, what we do. Let's have a real conversation, because it's the dollars went there, but I know people still get evicted. Or it's Capstone, why should we even still pay your rent? And all y'all getting checks, So it's because we know that we have been able to run on a shoestring budget for years and get so much done. Like speaking specifically like FCNC, FTP, like we've been running on love power.
For real.
Since the jump. Yes, exactly.
We've been running on, does anybody know how to write a grant?
Please help me. We have to done, so it's like these things are there, the stuff exists, I think we just gotta work together.
You know, what I think that something that all of y'all said, when we make the relationships the work, when we start making the relationships the work product, that's how we build our community, make it strong, right? Because the way y'all show up for people that, you say, I know that you don't show up for, people show up for other people, right? You call me because you said you want Mama Mel, right? You know, I call Ashley, I call one of us, look, I need my kids. Because relationships will take us over the winter. You know, when we make, what we have, we keep doing, we keep making something, some article, some tangible, technical thing our work product. But if we make the building of our relationship the actual work product, right? What is the goal of this? To build relationship. You know, because we talk about people united can never be defeated, but how do we get united? Because we built relationship. You know, who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. How do we know we keep us safe? Because we trust each other. How do we trust each other? Because we build relationship.
Somebody mentioned.
So, I mean, we need to start focusing, and I know, and every time I say these people say, well, that's not real work. Yes, it is. Relationships are work.
Okay, happy work. I'm bad at that. I'm like, you want to talk for a while?
I really believe just that for Mama Mel, like I said, as far as like even for me on a personal level, like I'm thankful for.
I'm right here.
Like even like past like just growing up relationships, like school relationships like that is so different than the community work that we do now. Through just relationships with you guys and learning and growing with you guys, like I am able to show like not only like the trans male community but the trans female community in this community that like we are safe and there are people that will keep us safe and that like there is a unity and like that's what's dope. Like it's not just a one-man team or just a one-man visibility. Like God forbid if anything happened to me or Z tomorrow, like people in our community, how about like not our community, people in our village, because what we're doing is like we all are a bunch of different villages and we're literally rebuilding the community. So like
rebuilding the village.
We literally like our village knows to reach out to someone if they can't get to me, if they can't get to Zenith, if they can't get to Alex, like they know that they can pick up the phone and they know that Mama Mel was Mama Mel because you know what, I was at a protest with Britt and Britt was speaking to Mama Mel and this is the conversations, or you know what, like I was talking to Z and Z was around Ashley and Z introduced me to Ashley and you know like these are the connections. Like we were having a conversation with Ilhan and all together like we were able to build this program. Like that took a whole broken village and now gave a village a place, like visibility. So this movement it has to continually grow over the summer and over the winter. And I think that like just always going back and sharing old videos from protests. One thing about like this generation is this generation listens to everything. They know who Free the People ROC is. They know how to go on YouTube. They know how to say, look, if you go to 3 minutes and 22 seconds, you can see me. You can see me. Those are the things that we have to continue to go back to, like we have to promote. Because the best thing about it is like we live in this shitty ass city with this shitty ass weather, and it's darker here than it is light. So when the light gets ready to come out, we come literally like full throttle, and the community is waiting. And now we have spent the whole entire winter hurdling and sweating amongst each other now. So when we come back to the community, every part of this, every entity is a million times stronger.
Yeah, well, after here, I'm just ready to build. Like, I feel like I want to turn this into a planning session and like.
No. Absolutely not. I want to make sure that like, you know, the people who are always like talking are not the only ones. Like, I want to hear what Sarah has to say. I want to hear what, you know, Ilhan has to say. What Shay meditate y'all and come back a whole new person. So maybe she's not. Okay. Oh, and Indy, you have shared on my heart, so.
Oh.
Period. I mean, try like that.
I think I should be starter.
So what am
I don't know. I need my.
What you got to say?
Tell us about the new abolitionist.
Nah, I was like resonating a lot with when we were talking about community and like buildings or villages. I feel like and going out, we're talking about relationship being so important. Like that's really what brought me into this work, is relationship. Like I was active and going across over the summer, but it really was like, I remember so vividly meeting Stanley for the first time. He was like about to get arrested. It said like, throw me your backpack, and I just throw it. And then Stanley dropped off my phone the next morning and was just like, just give me a hug after I got like right after I got released from the police, just give me a hug, and I so needed it, and just being there for me, and like I was like, oh, this person really cares for me. Like that was one of the worst moments of my life. I'm coming out of jail, walking around the corner, and Stanley's like with a hug and a banana. I was like, this is good. This is where I belong. I feel welcomed in this space. I feel like I've been wanting to do more for so long, but I never knew how. And trying to like figure out, okay, what can I do? But really, it was like, who can I get around? Like, and then I don't have to worry about so much about what can I do. It's like once I'm around Stan, once I'm around Ashley, Ilhan, Shay, I'm just like, the question of what can I do it doesn't even come up anymore. It's just like, these are my people. Right. What are we doing together? Like, how are we moving forward together? So I like really resonate with that, because that's like the transformation that I've had over this past couple of months, is just like finding my tribe and being like, whatever work we do, I know it's going to be good because we're doing it together.
Right. That's a word. That should be okay. Period.
But that's how you keep movements going, though. You know, that's how you build community. Because like Simeon is who Simeon is, partially because of the village that he stands on. You know, I am because of the village that I stand on. And so my job, like you've heard me say this, all of y'all heard me say that, my job at this point is to pour everything I got into you. So when I become empty, y'all are full, and y'all can keep it moving.
And that's the goal, to die in it, like not to die with all of this stuff, but to constantly.
Like when I ride in heaven, I want to like ride the wheels fall off. You know, right? And they're like, dang, you took it all the way to the end. You know, but that's what it is. That, you know, if we can do it, so that way the movement's never moving.
Right.
Because we're constantly feeding. We're feeding each other.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Sarah here.
Sarah.
Shout out to Mary and Ricardo, always and forever.
I guess I'll talk. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll talk about what Mama Rose said. Talking about how she wants to pass everything on to us. I feel that from her, and I also feel that a lot from my dad too. And you know, he's over there.
Season, baby, season.
And talking.
I did not know that. This is what?
Shock me.
Stories you do tell.
And I feel like ever since I was a little baby, like there's literally pictures of me as a child sitting there standing in front of riot cops, and I feel like from then to now it's such a crazy transition, and I think a lot of that credit goes to the elders in the community. And I feel like having the elders that we have really does, like, because of the work that they've done and because of what we can learn from them, it makes the movement so much stronger. And we can learn so much from them, and we can learn from what they've done well and what they haven't done well. We can go based off of that, and I think it's so good that we have that in our community, and I think I'm just really grateful to have that.
Wow. We're really grateful to have you. Yeah.
And also, even with y'all and the next generation, like, y'all gonna make it so, because I know
Here, we the same age, basically.
oh my God, like, it's
Why
you say it like that?
Because you are them. Say us.
Us.
Thank you.
We're making it so much easier for when I get shot at you.
Why are you trying to play us like that?
If y'all old, I must be ancient and dusty.
I didn't say it was old.
I heard you. They're projecting.
It's a crazy experience. Like, I'm 20 in Sarasburg too. Like, the same year with y'all, we get like.
Come on with y'all,
Thank you.
No, but I feel what she's saying. That sitting at this table, like, with a little bit of the age difference. No, just a little bit.
Let's go back to your cribs now.
I'm 20 and y'all just so old.
Okay, so
Girl, I was just 20.
that's a no.
I was just fell for it. I was like, no.
Experience.
It's a crazy feeling. It's inspiring to be like, oh man, we're learning from you guys.
But this is what it's supposed to be. When we do village, as we rebuild, when we do village, this is what's supposed to look. And there should be, the village is not complete because there should be people who are true elders who are older than me at the same table. And because all of us have a role. And all of us in our own, and where we sit in our right. You know, and I don't mean right like our RIT, like in our right or passage, but we are the stage where this is what it's supposed to look like. We need to normalize this. Because this is what it should always be.
And we also got to understand that it's intentional actions that keep it from looking like this, right? So we got to look at like the war on drugs and like crack and all of that is like intentional, like chemical warfare and like warfare against the war on poverty, like warfare against our communities to make sure like we don't have generations on generations organizing to get up from under what's going on. Like we see civil rights and it's just like, oh, that was so long ago. But it's like, no, that's really just my grandma, right?
Right.
So it's like, and my grandma only 17 years older than my dad, right? So it's like, it ain't that far, you know? But it's like, because so much, look how, like, just this much happened in this, how long?
Yeah.
Girl. Just this 6 years.
6
right?
years.
And it's like, that's damn near a decade.
And
right?
it feels like we've known each other for
My whole life now.
Okay.
Bam, I was organized, right? And so I was 25. And it was like, oh my God, there's a whole new world or whatever. So it's like now, whatever, at 32, it's like, one, y'all just call me old.
I was about to say how old I was and got better than
It's cool, but it's like, I'm grateful, one, for like the wisdom and to be able to like, oh, I can talk to you, and the fact that it's actually folks coming behind me that's like, yeah, I'm with the shits too. Let's get it done,
Right.
you know? And that it's not, it's like we all grow up like afraid of saying something because like, they're gonna kill you, you know? Like, those are the images we have. We got like Malcolm, Martin, and Freddie, right? Like, bang, bang, bang. So it's like, oh no, that's not the thing. But it's like, no, we got the racial stories. We got the silent. We got the other people who didn't make it. Like, they
didn't kill us all.
They right, and they can't.
Well, they kill us all.
You see, you know, so it's like understanding that and really, I feel like once folks get free, and that go back to what you're saying, like what do we do with the community or whatever? You can't put people back in the cage, and that's the thing. Like winter or not, like folks feel free, and you can't take that away from them. Like you can't tell them that they can't get back in the middle of their street after they've been in the middle of the street. You know, especially for the kids that was out there. It's like you can't put these babies back in the box, and you're not ever gonna be able to tell these babies that they can't do whatever. And I feel like that part is amazing. And that was like what was taken from us. It was like, because when I grew up necessarily, it was like, yeah, we heard some stuff about like South Africa or whatever, but that was more like on TV than like a real India face like movement thing. It was like people was getting shot in the early 2000s, so it was like, oh, it's just a thing. Like Sean Bell and all of those names, but the names always been adding up, you know, like it's always been a thing. Like Argentina was a thing, but it was just like, oh, it's just part of, it just is what it is. And it's like not until it's more than just you being like, nah, that ain't it. We can do something different. Like it can be. We can imagine something different. It's like they just give us these ideas. Like no, this is it. Like no, my imagination actually works. Yeah. It works well. There's no reason why I can't use it. And I feel like that's what we get shamed out of imagining anything else. It's like no, this is it. And you completely problem for other stupid. Nah, you're the stupid one for telling me my imagination. And I think that we just incredibly powerful for like being brave enough to lean into our magic. And so it's so much more to come, and I'm so excited to see what comes next, because it's like youth that's like imagination full, you know, and ready to like put ideas and stuff out there, and then it's like what we just talking about, the fact that we getting funded for stuff that 2 years ago it would be like, nah, that don't even seem like what we want to move in the direction of, like, no, this is it. Actually, we're on play. Actually, we're experts. We know what we're talking about. Yeah. So give us the money now, so we can actually do what we need to do. Because if not, these white people literally getting old, getting intergenerational wealth off of our backs, off of our suffering, and we over it. So I think that's really what we got to look forward to.
I'm going to tell you how that happens. Right?
I'm free, baby.
I appreciate this mechanism that's in place. But the first thing I want to say is that tomorrow's my birthday and I'm going in my prime. So, so you know.
22.
But these gray hairs don't say that. But all jokes aside, the mechanism that's in place in a community like ours, right? Let's talk about, Family Center was mentioned earlier, nonprofits during the 80% of nonprofit expense, on average, is personnel costs, personal salary, benefits, and so on and so forth, right? And what we know is that in a place like Rochester, the vast majority of folks that are working for nonprofit organizations are suburban, and they're white, right?
And women.
And generally women.
And getting paid.
And so if 80% of the expense, and we know that nonprofits tend to be tied, right? Which means that folks at higher levels tend to make more, folks at lower levels tend to make a lot less. If we know that folks that are at higher levels tend to be even more white and even more suburban, what that tells us is that a lot of dollars that come into this community masquerading as dollars for us are actually economic development for Greece and Hilton and Fairport and so on and so forth. Right? And so what that requires us to think is, now here's the thing. If we were knocking the ball out of the park and you're getting great results, maybe we could have a conversation. But we know that many organizations are failing at the imperative to make things better for communities of color. And it begs the question, if the actual problem is not just the poverty or just the actual problem is how the dollars are actually flowing through the system itself, right? And it seems to me that that's the kind of analysis that we can bring. Look, when people look at Black folks, they have historically problematized us, right? We're a problem to get solved. I look in the mirror and I say, I'm not the problem, I'm the solution. I look at y'all and I say, y'all aren't the problem. We're the solution that makes this community stronger and better, literally for everybody, which is the thing that's really ironic. The other thing I want to say is that this time you referenced just the war on drugs in particular, is that we're not crazy to think about this in that lens. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore that the U.S. government attacked Black organizations in the 60s and 70s. That's not like a figment of our imagination. COINTELPRO, those files, we can read them now, right? We can see that actually happened. So we're not crazy. But let's ask the question, why did they attack? Particularly something like the Black Panther Party. And I just find it so relevant to this question that's on the table about what do we do next. Because the Black Panther Party was so impactful, not only because they would show up at state capitals armed, but because they were doing feeding programs, right? Because they were taking care of kids, because they were providing an alternate form of education, right? And so that sense of agency is, I think, the thing for us to try to capture. And I know that I've been really, personally committed to trying to figure out how we drive more resources into us having our own agency, building our own institutions, building that structure, not just for the sake of doing it, not just as a nationalist imperative, right? But because this community, on the whole, will be better if more actual dollars get driven into the hands of actual
people could actually do that.
Experience. So I mean, it's not that complicated, right? Our job is just to try to figure out how we create the requisite political will to do it. And then the last thing I just want to say, and then I'm going to go ahead and be quiet for a little bit and do some more coloring, is that it's also important to take stock of what's happening already. And that's an essential element in sustaining folks, right? I mean, what has been accomplished in this community over these last few months is dramatic.
Absolutely.
love yourselves, pat yourselves on the back for a little bit, get a little dance in, right? It's because you've earned it, and that's the way that you sustain people, right? By building relationships around the incremental successes. I did a talk earlier today, and I found this quote, that perseverance isn't about winning a long race. It's about winning a series of short ones, one after the other. Yeah. And I feel like that's where we are, right? It's like to keep chalking up those small victories, because over time, when we look back and take stock, we'll recognize that the world has changed. Right. And that's something, and there's something to that.
Wow. I just want to thank all of you. Again, like I said, just really having a family. Like at the end of the day, being able to pick up the phone and call and just talk to people, texting people, just being able to check in. It's so funny.
You do that?
I do. I do. I was just gonna say, it's so funny sometimes, I'll call Ilhan or Ilhan call me, and we always end up denying each other's calls, but then calling each other right back, and then neither one of us still gets off. But it's just the laugh, just the actual laugh and the text message conversation, because you know that each one of us is still on the day-to-day fighting for something, and the fact of the matter that we're all able to take the things that we're fighting for and put them on the table and have that unity, just the fact that everyone has on some form of pink, when it comes down to justice for Chanel Hines today, it's amazing. As a community, we're learning that we leave no one behind, and we do not point fingers. We're not pointing fingers. We're looking at the racial injustice. We're talking about the whole Department of Corrections and the way that they move. We're talking about already we always talk about strong. We're bringing more and more visibility, to the things that, we've been chanting and yelling all summer. The examples are just falling in our laps right now, and we're able to, grab them up and grasp them. So, it is just amazing. Like I said, just being able to continue to spread the word. I don't know how many people from Syracuse, where Chanel's mother lives, has reached out to Free the People ROC, and they're all over your Instagram, they're all over our Instagram, and they're okay, how can we figure this out? We got people in Syracuse, we got people in Geneva, these are people that we really weren't even talking to before, but those networks are so amazing, the visibility is so amazing, and I guess the only thing that I'm just gonna say is I appreciate you guys. Next generation in the transition loves you. I love being a part of a family that I learned. And the best part about this family is, there's correction all across the board here. There is safety and correction, and that is what is wrong in our community, period. We don't know how to take criticism, but also take correction all in the same. There's no difference between criticism, correction, and then someone just being a pure act. And I take everything. I learn from everything. And man, I love y'all, and I appreciate y'all. We just gotta keep rocking.
We love you, Brittan. Next generation, better transition.
All right, I love you guys. We guys are done watching you do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that was the closing. I didn't. Yeah. That was that part. Okay.
Hi.
Well, that pink eyeshadow.
Yeah.
So Brittan is hosting the Trans Day of Remembrance event. So he had to leave early. And after this event.
I just want everyone to know that I knew Brittan before everybody because we were in 7th grade.
I want to tag in and disappoint you, Tonya. Not true, we went to church together.
Ooh, I knew Brittan and the life before this one.
I should say, we know that we went to Mexico together, so our is better, and we go to Jamaica together, so that's my brother.
When you almost drowned, what did you do?
I closed my eyes.
Here I go.
If it's my time to go, and I'm gonna go peacefully.
Don't get too fighting. Don't get too trying to
That's not what I think. There it is.
except for Mr. Police.
Right.
That's the one time I've gone. Any other justice peaceful, but if it's the police, I'm going all out.
And no, she's kidding.
Or if it's somebody in a suit, right?
Oh, true. We got past that. I don't know if we all was there, but this was when we went to the church on Genesee Street, and this is after we were trying to walk to and then you got bumped by, I think it was one of the security guards. Oh. And then we all moved back up, and I never met Simeon before this day, and he walked up, and all I saw was a suit, and I just saw somebody out in a suit. So I looked at him, I was like, He's smiling at me, and I gave him like the meanest coach. And I never forget anybody in my life. And he's like, "Oh, you must not know me. I'm Simeon." And I'm like, "Okay," until Stanley and actually confirmed it. That's what I was like, this man in the suit was. I don't have good history of men in suits, so we had a rough man. Much I will protect you all,
For real. So many times throughout, protesting and being in the streets, I'd be knocked down, I'll fall over, there'd be like 5 people, Indy just picking me up. Constantly, I'm also really clumsy, I need to stop falling.
I tried to catch you with my head.
Yep, I was falling back down the stairs, I'll have to use her head to, their head to like push me up the stairs. I was in the boot for a while this summer,
But you was
Yeah, like why should just like
Yeah, but it's because I have to drive. Nobody was trying to drive me around, and it's just like, you know what?
Okay,
I've been closing and keep it moving. So just the time check is 6:32, but I do want to talk about, like, I'm not in charge here either, but like I want to talk about like things that we've learned, right? Because like for me, I feel like we're on like a perpetual state of like tiredness, but also like learning too, right? And I know like I've been organizing for like over 10 years, but this summer I learned so much, and I think for me, one of the things that I walked away with, or one of the things that I gained just this summer, right? So I've been in protests where it's like 3,000 people, and I've been in protests where it was me and Stanley.
and it was still a protest.
It was still a protest. But I think this summer, like one of the things that I'm gonna take away the most is like, the importance of community, right? So like, I've been arrested a million times. Shout out to the police.
What you got?
They're watching. They lie.
Shout out to the police. But like, it's nothing. So like, like I always go back to this. I was trying to explain this to like my mom and my cousins, right? About the day that I got arrested at the Locust Club, right? So let me backtrack like 25 years. So I was at Flint Street Rec Center, right? And these 2 girls, they were sisters, they used to bully me all the time, right? And they used to like beat me up. And one time they had me up against the fence in the tree at Flint Street, right? And I was terrified, okay? Terrified, like, oh my God, these girls about to beat me up. And then all of a sudden, I see my cousins walking around the corner, and I got the courage of 10 lions, okay? I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. They were so stunned when I started popping off, it took them by surprise. Like, what? But it's because I felt my help coming, right? So they remind me, like, when we were at the Locust Club. When we were at the Locust Club, the police was on me, okay? Shout out to the police. And there was a lady there, there's a white woman there who was with me the whole time, but then when the police said we was gonna arrest you, she was like, peace out, good luck. I'll move your car for you. But bounce, okay? But it was like me and the police. And like I wasn't saying nothing because I was always talking junk, but I was trying to be cool because I didn't want them to take me to Henrietta, drop me off, and make me walk back. And there was nobody there, right? And Stanley pulled up. I seen her pull up and got the car, and I was like, enforce the law! Because I felt my hope coming, right? It also takes me to the point where we were in front of the PSB building, and the police was lined up, and me and Sammy was like the ones in the front, like ready to like put ourselves on the line. Or like the time that we got arrested, and it was just me, and Amanda was like, oh, I clearly got to go to jail too. But just like the community that this summer brought for me, right? Or like sometimes I think Black women put this work on their back and just go because we always had to do it, and there was nobody there, or most times there's not people there to be like, dang, you got all of this, let me take a little bit of it. But this summer has been like that. It's been like, you're not going to jail by yourself. If you do go to jail by yourself, we stand right out here when you get out. I can't tell you how many times I got arrested, and I knew there was a protest happening at PSB because we got arrested. And for me, that alone was comforting. Like, I was sitting here like, they're not going to do nothing to me because there's 500 people outside waiting for us to get out. And what that means. My cousin was in prison, and he called home and was like, the guards are threatening to kill me because nobody writes me letters. Nobody, I don't get calls. Nobody answers the call. And I was like, oh, don't worry. And we had a whole community of people writing him letters, putting money on their phone, just so that we don't know we got people. Exactly. So like for me, it has been, I'm not like that relationship building type of person. I'm more like, we got work to do. We can build a relationship while we're doing the work. Like I'm not the person that want to sit down and talk for hours. Stanley, I know her calls every day.
Every day, multiple times a day.
But for me this summer, I'm learning the value of what that looks like and like the safety that that creates, you know? Like, you know, Indy not just going to jail and this person I know. Like, I know what's important to her. I know Amina. I know what she's doing at her school. So it's not just this random person, but like, we took the time to really like have each other's back. I said all of that to say that it was ridiculous. But for me, that's what this summer has just been like a grounding in community, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. There was a day recently where we just sat together with each other and just talked and laughed and asked how we were doing, and there was something so beautiful, and that day I'll carry with me for forever, you know, just checking in and feeling so happy and hearing people laugh and knowing we were all safe and like we survived like some of the most brutal, violent things, and we're still here, we're still smiling, we're still checking in, we're still helping each other apply for health insurance, helping each other apply for unemployment, like just still doing all of this and taking care of each other at like, you know, the most difficult moments in our lives. So yeah, it's been a lot.
And I think I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's your turn.
Okay. I was gonna say also like just all the different personalities, like coming from like you were saying, you're not like a community, like you don't really get to know people, so like, oh, you have work to do, you're solution oriented and like focus on stuff. And just having so many of us come together and get the work done, but then still taking the time in the middle of getting tear gassed and stuff. Indy, I won't forget, you came up to me once and were like, are you okay? And you're crying. And I'm crying, and we're all crying, and everyone's still checking if the next person is okay, like calling somebody to grab them, like. And then at the end of every night, just waiting for everyone to say safe in that chat. Like, I couldn't sleep because I'd be like, I need to see everybody say that they're safe. And then saying safe is so weird because we're not safe, even if we are in our homes, because police are breaking down people's doors and entering their homes. And it's just like, dang, the fact that we could still find time to smile and like draw and do things like this, or just keep existing is like, Black people are strong as fuck, and that's what they're afraid of.
We really are. Y'all are some of the most resilient people I've ever met. Like, I just learned so much from each person, from Sarah to even Sarah's little sister Maya, all the way to Simeon and Mama Mel. I just constantly learn just ulterior ways of loving myself, loving the people around me, and just being hopeful, you know, like you've seen all types of shit, Mama Mel, that I probably can't even fathom, but you're still pouring love into people that have come after you. The whole time, from when this started, it was, are y'all okay? What do y'all need?
My man didn't get away time.
Exactly. Just showing up with food in the middle of chemistry and period. Y'all gotta eat, y'all gotta drink water. Y'all decide to do this.
I got 99,000 pizzas in my truck.
Right. I saw, and y'all know, they said, you look like you was carrying the pizza around. Yeah, she was walking around, she had pizza. Right? But that's what it is. It's the whole purpose. Because they try to make it illegal to love us. Yeah. And we have been swallowing that, this unlovableness and so on, and some of us begin to believe it. So it's like we got to be very intentional and deliberate in love. And I'm intentional and deliberate in showing y'all love, because I'm like, look, if I keep showing love, you will understand that you are not alone. You know, that it's saying like your life matters to me, right? And it's like that's why I talk about the relationship, because there's days that there's Black folk all around the city who don't ever get that love, and who don't have those relationships, who don't know that they matter. And so we need to be intentional about that everywhere we go, because
Absolutely.
And Noah.
So I was saying the thing that was really great about this weekend. It's been a great weekend, you guys. 2020 is just like, is that we learning, specifically learning from the past. Like, we've had intentional, specific conversations about things that happened here, like talking about like past traumas and past like hurt and whatever, and so to unpack it and move forward. And like, being honest and using honesty as a tool, like putting ego down and things like that, and having conversations around like accountability, and like just real team building that doesn't necessarily happen in moving spaces because there's so much going on. But like we've been intentional and like really carving out the time for that, and I think it really shows in actions. And not to get into specifics of actions as we like or whatever, but just like, yeah, I just been in this space to do actions with folks at this table where it's like, I ain't talking to none of y'all or nothing. Like, we all just showed up at the space, we all made eye contact, and we're all for the shit. The shit was amazing. And it's like, that's the type of energy, it's like, because I know I can trust you, because I know we a team, it's like, I got your back, you got mine, and like, not just saying it, but believing it, and that's not like, moving in an abstract, but us really like being intentional to create something that's going to move forward with. Yeah, and I would go back to what that's what I was saying. I was going to call you your other name, but that's not for the thing either. Like the chat is really lit, and that's really like having regular conversations or whatever, even if it actually like she don't like making friends. It's being able to know that we could like connect with one another and we have each other to lean on in this time. I remember like when we came back from Ferguson or whatever, the folks that I had went with, I had never been on the U of R campus that much in my life, but because we have all gone through this traumatic experience together, like I found myself being up there all the time just because like this was the team or whatever. And I feel like a similar experience with what happened. Like September was a lot. Like yeah, the summer was something, but like those 3 weeks in September was some complete other shit, you know? Like that was real like warfare happening on city streets. You know, it's like, yeah, we in November now, everybody's moved on or whatever. It's like, no, I'm traumatized. Yeah. And no, they intentionally did some shit to us. And it's like, yeah, it's great that we got the space to have these conversations, but it's like, damn, how the hood feel, you know? Because like they really rolled us with like tanks or whatever, like all sorts of shit. Just for folks talking about their life matters, you know? Like just asking for basic human like decency and stuff like that. So I think it's super empowering. But I think it's just amazing that we were able to learn from the past in real time and not wait on other things to happen. It's like, oh well, did this happen before? Like yeah. It did. We all just lived through it. Let's take a second and actually look into it so we don't fall into those same traps. And I think, again, they go to the thing of us just having space with folks and this being intergenerational and us being able to look to people and have others to talk to about it or just have a recent memory of things. That also goes to how shitty the world is. Like, oh, aren't you just having a revolution 4 years ago? Now, here we are. All right, well. Glad we got tools. We're gonna put the gas mask on. Right. So it's great. So I'm grateful for us using the tools that exist and being able to communicate on a level that allows us to do the thing. And it's like across the board. It's like Sarah called me like, so something's happening, and I never have time. People know how my schedule leaves or whatever. Sarah's like, don't even worry about it. Me and my mom will come to your house and bring donuts for the kids. So we can talk about things. And it works. And things look great. And then like I'm super proud in a space where it's like, I don't know. For me at least, like I felt so burnt out and so like, I don't know, vulnerable in spaces just due to like all the things that have happened. So to really be able to watch this year and like we had conversations where we were like, let's just pick a role and go with it. So like to really just be able to play your role, and shit work, and shit really pop, like it's really amazing. And then to just see other people learning and growing and shit. Like when Shay, I have been in conversations with Shay just this year. So to see the growth from this conversation where it's like, I'm unsure, to Shay pulling up like, you shut the fuck up, you shut the fuck up.
That's my favorite.
I love it. I love to see it.
You should have seen how she did the old lady at the funeral yesterday. I was behind her like, the old lady was like, well, I think we need the police. And she was like, I was like, not today.
No, Shay said I got time today. And I'm gonna whisper into you. And then the lady said, can I get an SCP shirt after?
But it's the standard in your power term. Like, it's that part, it's standing in your truth and standing in your power, and it's like, we're encouraging more people to do that, and we're doing it ourselves, and it's understanding our own truth, is resilient, like emergence for ourselves, right? And so that's what we want to see across the board. And so yeah, I think it's beautiful, and I think that we can't be stopped. I really think like another world is possible, and we the people to make it happen.
And just there's just so many leaders. Like, you know, I might be napping one day and Sarah has an idea. Someone else is off the other day. Someone else has an idea, and just to trust each other and know that our ideology really is truly grounded in anti-capitalist work, Black liberation, and just knowing that the ideas and the work is going to. It doesn't matter who does it. The ideas and the ideology is already there, so we can just anyone can come in and take it on, and that's been the beauty of it.
But I don't want to talk about watching growth, but I'm talking about watching. I watched you. You knew I was coming. You know, I remember before y'all went first. I remember when you came back, and as you're saying this, I'm having this flashback. I remember sitting over in the store, playing it before Ferguson. Y'all went to Ferguson. This happens. And then y'all came back and y'all was different. And all the things that happened, e-boards and all this other stuff that happened, you know, all the stuff, and watching you go through all that and then going to today. Like, I remember you were like, shit, we can grow food. I remember that. I remember when that light bulb went off, and it was like, you know, and watching your evolution is just so dope. You know, but it's like all, and the thing is, that for me, that's what the gift is. You know, it's like the gift is being able to sit back and bear witness and be able to speak it back to you when you tired as hell. Like, listen, I remember when blah 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 blah, and you dope as hell now. You know, don't forget. You know, because that's the gift. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember coming to Black and then realizing that you had a community garden and being like, oh my God, this is so dope. Oh my God, it's a Black person with a community garden. It was just like amazing. And to see like, in spite of all of the stuff that's happened through the years, like you still have it, you're still doing it. It's amazing. Shout out to you.
Y'all don't do me. And shout out to Flower City Mark Collection.
Okay.
Like, when there's a movement, when someone needs housing, you know, you don't have to like jump over all these hoops and ladders and prove that you're so poor and so struggling. It's like, who needs it? Where they at? Someone to come through. We have food for them. We got some clothes in the back. We got toiletries. And it's just that. It's like, you don't have to prove how hurt or how much trauma you're going through.
Further humiliated.
You don't have to do a trauma performance.
You don't. It's like, I need help, and that's it. And those are the types of institutions we deserve. And just, yeah, thank you for.
Can I tell you something? I think that's funny. This time last year, I was rough end of the year last year. My car got stolen on my birthday.
Your car?
Oh, what car did I go to tomorrow?
Yeah, listen.
Or leave it online and tell me where it's at.
I was, it was rough, but even more than that, in the work that I do in my professional life, you come face to face with a lot of what's wrong with this community. A lot of the people are wrong with this community. And I think sometimes you just feel like worn down and just like, is it even worth it? Are people getting this? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it even clicking? And so I just want y'all to know that what you have done this year definitely reinvigorated me. And just seeing like that, there are like minds, there are folks that are out here that do have that imagination, right? There are folks that are out here that do have a heart for our people and to make the situation better. Really, I mean, it's in ways that you don't even know have, really just like so reanimated me and reinvigorated me, and I really appreciate it. And I'm mad, very cool.
I'll say Christ on us.
No, real talk, man. It's not necessarily about the house, but I will tell you about, I'll just aside because it's easy for dreams to get crushed, right? And it's easy for the aspirations that you have, for a community when you can see so clearly how things can be different, And to just feel like, you know, it's like they're winning, you know, so it just feels like, and we're losing, and that's what it felt like. And then to be like, nah, it's not that, like, we can actually, you know, we can do this. It's really, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. So thank you.
I can say the same for you.
I was gonna say that.
You know, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. When I got tired at the end of the bridge, you came along and you were like the Golden Gate. You were like the GW, Captain Z. You know, it was like because you spoke both languages. And it was like I would sit there and like, you know, because you get tired. And you have a dream, and like you know better than most. Like I had a dream. I've been carrying a dream for many years. And I got tired. Just when I get tired, you know, I watch y'all and I'm like, I can't get tired. Because y'all count on me to make this thing happen. But then I'm tired, but then you come along and you can speak the language to do the thing. And I'm like, thank God. Because it's like I keep saying, I have more years behind me than I do ahead. And I'm so honored to sit among y'all and be able to bear witness to the glory and the greatness that is y'all.
Thank you, Annabelle. I was gonna say too, just for both of you guys, like, yo, it's you know, people like to say like, oh, those just young people, those just, you know, but just like to see what the bag has done just to support us, like collectively that group, and then just both of you guys individually, like you answer all the calls, how much of a last minute emergency it is. You get it done for us all the time, like, and Mama Mel, I don't even know where to start, like, just showing up, like, from using your car as a getaway, you know, as a food delivery truck. When I saw you tear gas, I was like, they want to fight. They want us to go to federal prison. Like, they tear gas at Mama Mel, but just like how you just continually show up for us, and not just like us, like all of the young people. One day I was gonna post a shout out to you, and I went through all of the pictures. And I was trying to post the pictures with you and everybody, and I was like, this is too many. Like, it's too many kids. I couldn't post them all, but like, just so appreciate like what you guys have been to us, and then putting your money where your mouth is. And I mean like quite literally. Like just thank you. It's different when people are like, oh, you guys are doing a good job. Oh, we believe in you. But then when people actually invest their money in you, like I appreciate it. I was like, oh, they believe in us. They gave us a coin. I mean, we ain't got to check for a long time.
and baby, from now on, don't make people hunt you down and cash the check that they give you. Okay, because now our money is good. Okay, our check is good, our checks stay good. I know. But it's not that way for everyone.
I'm going to stand out of the bus, but blame them. I said, I don't want to stand out of the bus.
I was busy being here,
Yeah, we love y'all. Just thank y'all so much.
Well, I might have been their props. I want to give my props to y'all.
Hold on, let me get ready for this.
I just want to say, like, over the past couple of months, y'all have, I don't want to use the word developed, but developed as a leader and as like a change maker in this community in ways that I can't even say to y'all. Like, I'm so grateful to the two of you specifically for just like, and first of all, inspiring me to be in this work and showing me that this is where I belong, and this is the work that I'm meant to be doing, and then supporting me as I'm doing this work and supporting like Stanley pulled up to the occupation on U of R campus last Saturday with so much stuff. We took multiple trips talking about sleeping bags, it was out shopping all day to make sure that when we're out there and we're fighting for what's right on our campus, that we're out there prepared. Like, just make sure, like, you're talking about putting your money where your mouth is. Like, that's what Sam's out there, like, making sure that we're okay. Do you need anything? If I need anything, call me. I'll come back immediately. You know I got you. And that's like, it's inspiring me because I'm sitting here like we're planning this application. I'm like, well, we have these big goals, like we want to do this big action and speak up to the things that are wrong with this campus. But how are we gonna do this? We don't have any money. How are we gonna do this without supplies? We need to stay outside. We don't got tent. We don't got seats. Like we don't got $2 pay. Our first call is like, well, let me call the stand. Let me see if they can help us out a little bit. And that's exactly what you do. You did, and you showed up for us and for me in a way that's like showed me that you're there for me y'all are always there for me. If I ever need to call you, if I ever need anything, I know exactly who to call. And I know that you'll be there and supporting me in this work. So like, everybody give me a props. I have to make sure that y'all get too.
Exactly what Indy said. Exactly what Indy said.
No. I love y'all.
And I just want to say really quickly that Ashley absolutely does have friendship building skills. What she says, Ashley, I love all of y'all, but Ashley, you ask questions to get to know me personally, like off the bat. You've done things, you said things, and you reach out at the perfect time. You remember things, so you absolutely have friendship.
Y'all tell me
You're
You're
like me. You protect your energy, so you have that love wall up, you know, so everybody can't get in and mess with your shit. But for the people that you really feel for on a more personal level, you make your presence and your friendship very known.
Oh,
and I love you so much.
Actually, there's a reason the community call you when they need anything.
Everyone.
Literally. They need anything, they want this on with ass. There's a reason for that.
That's why you need That's why you got to get too. From spicy honey mustard. Okay, don't get tired. But what were you saying, sir?
Oh, I was just saying, actually, especially you too, because like there's been so many. What?
no, it's just.
We love you.
Like there's so many times ever since December, back when I did the walkouts and stuff. You and Ilhan, y'all was just there through all of it. Y'all did whatever we needed, literally whatever we needed. Y'all was there for it. And y'all always, especially being like, you know, there was all the mix up in the summer. We made sure we got what we needed to get, and you just always came through for us, especially as like youth and TAP specifically. So.
Aww,
I
I was gonna say, you know something else, and I always say this to my boyfriend. I can't say to my boyfriend. I always say this, and like, you know, like, the more you say it, the more you believe it. And I think, like, specifically Black women, but yo, women in FEMS, like, we can do anything.
Absolutely.
And like, this summer has just like proven to me, like, yo, you know, every New Year's Eve I make a vision board, and like I was telling my boyfriend, like, yo, everything on my vision board came true. Like I gotta dream bigger, and like just to see what we pulled off yesterday, just to see what we pulled off this entire summer, I'm like, yo, we can do anything, and I believe it like in the depths of my soul that we can do anything, and I'm just like so proud of like not just us at this table, the community, just to see like what Ilhan is doing, like just to see how Shay can get her rocks and go to the beach and become a different person. Y'all. Come back and give everybody a word to inspire us to like keep moving forward and like get hungry and like Ilhan's like, so what's your address? I can drop off these groceries. Just to see like everybody plays a part, you know? Like just to see how like Kristen and Tonya, like even though we don't show up, they constantly open their house for us to come. But like
the buttons was cute though, right?
The buttons were mine, and the family was like happy, okay? They disappeared quick. The buttons from yesterday.
Yeah.
But just to see like the part that everybody plays to make this work the way that it works. And like I said this yesterday, I am so proud and excited to run alongside y'all. Like, the future is what we make it. Like, and I asked the city council and the mayor, all these people, why?
The mayor.
The mayor.
The mayor. So is this actually the
Y'all tripping. They tripping. So, they tripping. So, like, just, like, I see those seats, and I'm like, in my heart, in my mind, like, I can hear, like, you know, like the timer when you're cooking, like, I can hear a timer going off, because, like, it's coming, you know?
We ready.
And just to, like, oh, don't get me started. But, yeah, just to see, like, what we've done, and, like, imagining what we can do, like, all these city council seats, all these county board seats, like, you can't tell me that we ain't gonna win. Like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, we put all the pieces together, but we're coming. Like, I'm just so inspired by all of y'all. Like,
Yeah. Wow.
What was I doing with this art though?
No, doesn't become an
artifact.
Yeah, I had a photograph so I could send it to everybody.
Well, let me write some moving powerful shit down.
Have Art and Pop come back and
Oh, no, I was gonna say yeah to the taking pictures and
Absolutely.
you know, sometimes what people do, if you want something right away, if you want to post or something, you can just take pictures with your phone, but I'll have some really good photos done. And, I'm not trying to interrupt the table, but I also have, I'm curating, I'm a guest curator at the Changemakers exhibit. And, so there's Change Now, is about all of you. And so Martin Hawkins, I'm getting some of the videos from he's taken from the year, from the months. I guess it felt like years, but from the months. And so the first one is already up in the exhibition, and it has 4 of you in it. And my plan is to, what I proposed to them, is I shift it out every month so that I could feature 4 or 5 other people, and so that it has as many people as possible in it. And the whole idea behind it was that it shouldn't take 20 years for the work that you've been doing all this summer to be honored. And so the idea is for now. So.
Thank you.
Artists who are with the shit, like, not afraid to be political and speak up. It's so necessary within this work.
And I'm also trying to see, and I'll let you know, I don't know if I should say this, but I will. So this is pressure. I asked them to have a community day too, that works free to the community, because I think it's really critical that you can't have a Change Now exhibition and have it cost $14 to $16 for people to get in.
Yeah.
And then actually be connected to the community, so I'll keep you posted.
Let us know what they say, because we'll put the pressure on. But this is our museum now? The People's Museum in Science Center.
Well, it's a public institution in the sense that it is funded by the public. So I mean,
$900,000 every year.
Don't get Simeon started.
For the 1.3 million, I got that figure too. They get 900,000 of it, so. But I think that there are ways to make changes, and I also want to say that if you all want to do this again, the Black House is open to you to do it again. If you want to have this kind of conversation, I'll grab the table for you. Give out the markers if you want to just have a conversation on anything. It can be public or private, however you want it to be.
Yeah, I like this. I was a little nervous. I was like, okay, what did we say yes to? This is brilliant.
I sent Ashley an email with all the.
Actually, I'm going to do really quickly, and everybody say bye, and then I'm going to just go down this one.
I'll say bye to Facebook.
Oh, you all want to continue? I thought you had to go back.
Oh, yeah, we gotta get to this.
You don't have to.
Remember.
You don't have to. I just thought that people feel good to go to.
I would like to give a shout out to Indy.
Indy is the embodiment of what this work should look like.
Indy, like, just meeting them the first time that you talked about, you have been someone I really look up to. Like, your thoughts are just so inspiring and clear. And, like, Ashley called me radical, and I'm like, have you met Indy? Like, they're just no game. You're willing to learn. You're willing to organize within your own institution. Like, give people from campus right to the actions and, like, calling anyone and everyone out. And you're just so bold, so brilliant, so strong, so powerful. And I look up to you, and I'm just thankful to call you my friend.
Oh, real quick shout out to Brianna, because you're not here, but
Yes,
sis puts in the work in all sorts of ways.
Brianna. Y'all should have seen her singing I'm going up a yonder yesterday.
You should have heard her singing at this church. I put it in the group.
Today?
No, she did it yesterday. You gotta move it like 40 something. She's under her best.
Kristen also shared the exact same.
Oh, I got it. Listen, I was playing the drums. I was like, oh, hold on a minute. Brianna?
So I'm on Facebook now.
He's Facebook.
My Facebook.
Please donate.
Please, you must say.
Yep, do that.